Hello again, YouTube. Welcome back to Book Time with Peter. If you're wondering why I still don't have the backdrop that I promised, it's because I'm recording this video concurrently to the previous video. Now, this time, I want to continue talking about some science fiction books that I listened to recently. These books are a part of a trilogy, although only the first two have been released yet. The books are called The Worldship Humility and The L4 Drop. Now, these books, are by R.R. Haywood, and they are about, again, an arc ship sort of going on. This is a whole genre unto itself. I don't know how many of you are avid readers of science fiction, but you probably, if you are, then you realize that the idea of an arc ship, or a ship that is taking a large group of people on a journey to somewhere that they can, another planet where they can terraform and or live, or has been pre-terraformed, or can already support life. Maybe they're fleeing a doomed Earth. Maybe it's like the Nauvoo in the Expanse series, where they're just going out for they're going out there for the sake of being pioneers. These books, The Worldship Humility and The L4 Drop, take place on arc ships. In this case, the backstory is that the Earth was about to be hit by a meteor. They had 60 years warning. Humanity pulled together, created these arc ships, and a few million people were able to escape out of billions who eventually perished when the asteroid struck the Earth. And essentially, the society of these ships is like capitalism in space. Now I'm going to have to add reverb to that part. Damn it. I don't like doing that. So I like to keep my post-production work to a minimum, if you can't tell. At any rate, the Worldship Humility is one of these arc ships, and on that ship there is a airlock operator named Sam and a young woman named Yasmin, who is one of the L4s, which is short for the lower fours. Now, as these ships were taking off, the bottom four levels of the ship were essentially supposed to be cargo space and additional space. But some of the captains of some of these ships went rogue and decided to cram the extra space on the ships with as many people as possible. But back when people were still doing Earth capitalism, people had earned or bought their way on to be the survivors on these world ships, on these arc ships. And so the people in the upper levels of the ship resent and dislike what have essentially become an underclass that they consider stowaways, and that they don't have rights of citizenship. The lower fours have been shortened to L4s. It's sort of a pejorative to call somebody an L4. It's sort of a slum area, and it creates a significant class divide. And the class divide in the class structure and the capitalism in space is a major part of the story of these books, not only in terms of the plot, but in terms of the themes. And in terms of the I guess you would say inciting incident of the book, there is a probe that is capable of traveling faster than the arc ships in order to go out and search for planets that would be possible for habitation. Now, one of these probes comes back to the fleet of arc ships with the information that it's found a habitable planet. But the elites who essentially run the societies of these ships, they want to be able to get to these planets first and claim rights over these planets and basically continue their rule, as it were. I guess it's not so much rule in a feudalistic sense, although it's a bit like that, but in the sense of they want to continue their power onto these new planets. There's also the issue of that the fleet itself is a kind of coalition, and they are all controlled navigationally from a hub ship at the center of the fleet. And I can't remember the name of this particular ship off the top of my head. It will probably come back to me as I'm talking about this video. But all of their so they're all tethered together, receiving navigational direction from a hub ship in their fleet. But they're also a coalition. So if one group got this information, or if they all got this information at once, there'd be kind of a rush to who can get to the planet first and stake out the best territory on this habitable planet that the probe has found. So this code of the information about this habitable planet, it becomes like I guess you would say, a MacGuffin, and it is attempted to be smuggled secretly and uploaded into the hub ship, but it ends up getting not lost, but it changes hands, and as I said, it becomes the MacGuffin of the story. And meanwhile, you have this guy Sam, everyday schlub. He's working at an airlock. He's pretty good at hacking. Sometimes he'll just hack to mess around with the advertisements on the ship and petty things like that. He's got a group of friends that aren't really his friends, but it's sort of like, a computer geek sort of group of people. And he meets Yazi, who's a young woman. I shouldn't say, actually the book says they're both 30 years old. So you may or may not consider 30 years old young. But a woman who he encounters shoplifting in the plaza area. She has escaped from the lower areas and bribed her way up into the upper areas, escaping some problems with some of her friends and the gangs that are in the L4 area, the slums of the ship. And she's in the midst of shoplifting. Sam helps her out by hacking some things when she's about to get busted for shoplifting. And they form a friendship that ends up leading to a kind of heist scenario. They meet some other characters. And I guess what I find interesting about this ship is I'm a big fan of Neil Stephenson. And although this isn't exactly like Neil Stephenson, in terms of the plots, I would say the characters and aspects of the story like that remind me of Neil Stephenson, particularly Snow Crash, maybe some of his earlier work and less his later work. But it's a fun story. It didn't make me think as much as the previous book that I was talking about, Children of Time and Children of Ruin. Those books were kind of more mentally engaging in terms of science fiction, of imagining, the evolution and intelligence of non-human species. But in terms of science fiction, these books are more along the interesting but fun. I guess the intellectually stimulating part is more sociological for these books. So again, there's sort of capitalism in space and an underclass and factions vying for power and a lot of different political and social things going on like that. And so if you're looking for a more lighthearted read that's not as much ponderous as certain things might other be, I think these books, again, are more in the enjoyable category. I'm definitely looking forward to the third book. This is apparently a trilogy called the Code Trilogy. The first two books have been released. The last one was released in 2019, so I'm not sure when exactly the next one is due out. But I guess that's really all I have to say for this book. Again, unless I'm overtly criticizing a book, pretty much anytime I do one of these BookTube videos, it's going to be my endorsement of the book. I personally enjoyed it and thought it was worth reading. I assume a lot of you out there are geeky type of people that like science fiction. So that's going to be it for this book. In the future, I think I might do a review of the Bobverse books, although those are fairly well known. I, a couple months ago, listened to that entire series, and then I'm going to start just digging through back catalog. As I said, in the last decade or so, I've listened to or read literally hundreds of books, and I've talked about a few of them. There are plenty more that I want to talk about, and I plan to in the relatively near future. So I hope you're all eagerly awaiting those, and have a good whatever time it is.